From Lando Norris and McLaren, maybe this will be their track, because last week certainly wasn't.
It certainly needs to be. Ferrari have scored 121 points in the last 4 races. McLaren have only scored 71 points. ever since that wing that was kind of dipping a bit too much for the FIA's liking has disappeared, so it seems as McLaren's form a little bit.
Yeah, and let's see how it goes this weekend. Like you say, that wing a little bit less flex in it. We've got a shorter DRS zone here this week as well. It should suit McLaren more than Las Vegas did. Ferrari, we've already heard some comments that maybe not suit them as well as they would like. But it is very close. And with 2 drivers scoring points, you can have a really, really successful weekend or a really poor one. So they'll be trying not to put a foot wrong. Any DNF or accident now would really hamper their constructors. And
just finally on the curbs, Ant says they've been lowered, which they have, but it's the tips, the pyramid-style tips have been rounded off to make them lower. So that should be easier on the tyres, shouldn't it? It
should definitely be easier on the tyres, but one of the things here, a bit like, and we sometimes have it as well in places like Austria, you're running those curbs a lot and you spend a lot of the time fully loaded, so on full throttle, fully loaded on those curbs, and it's the consistency lap after lap after lap that's, it's cycling through the tyres, and that's what causing some of the issues. We've seen issues in 21 as well, so last year's not new. These cars are obviously going to be quicker than they were last year as well. So is it going to be enough what they've done? We're soon going to find out.
Yuki Tsunoda making his way out of the garage. We were just looking at a shot down the pit lane. 3rd longest pit lane of the season, over 500 metres. So long, in fact, that we couldn't see Ted Kravitz on the camera because we were looking from Sauber, and he's at Red Bull. Hello, Ted.
Hello, Crofty. Hello,
Karun? No, he's not here.
Hello, Bernie.
You can say hello to him, he'll be watching at home.
And hello, Karun. And hello, everybody from the pit lane. Yes, fully loaded, Bernie. Sounds like a description of Max Verstappen's Saturday evening in Las Vegas, because he celebrated, and right that he did, because there he goes out of the garage, the first garage in the pit lane, the garage with the #1 on top of it. They don't even have to change the sticker on the front of the Red Bull RB20. The only thing that is different is the golden helmet, the golden crash helmet that he's wearing with the 4 golden stars on the back, 21, 22, 23 and 24, and the golden boots. Yes, Crofty, he's got the golden boots, celebrating that 4th World Championship. So it's racing for fun. I know what you're saying, Crofty. For the teams, it is all about the money, but for the rest of us and for the drivers, I feel it's racing for fun now. Lando Norris saying that he can just relax a bit and go out there racing for fun. All the drivers saying that as well. Max Verstappen certainly had his fun in Vegas and looks forward to a bit more fun here in Doha this weekend.
Let's ask our tame world champion then. Once you've won a world championship, do you race for fun? How do things change once a championship is won?
Well, I mean, it was in sports cars, not Formula 1, of course.
It matters not. You are a world champion.
Yeah, and I did win it with 1 race to go.
Exactly.
So yeah, we did go to that next race, and it was fun. But the team still hadn't won the Constructors' World Championship by that stage as well. So there was still work to be done, and it's good. Like Lando was saying earlier on, it's nice to see the joy that you can bring the whole team of people around you, all 1,500 plus that a team like McLaren might have, working for those 2 drivers to drive as quickly as they can, to have the best car they possibly can, to score as many points for all of you as a collective. And when you do achieve that, it's like nothing else, because we focus on the drivers a lot, and rightly so in this sport, but we can never forget that it's a team sport as well.
Max Verstappen won the title on a Saturday night this year, won the title on a Saturday night last year as well in the sprint race here in Qatar. But just to back up your racing for fun, he returned to the track the next day and took one of his 5 career Grand Slam wins, winning from pole, leading every lap, setting the fastest lap as well, just to show how much fun he was having. And he won the title last year with 6 races remaining, which matched Michael Schumacher's record for the most amount of races remaining after winning a world title. And
it is fun just to drive a Formula 1 car around this track. The Formula 1 car is in its happy place on a circuit like this. You've got that huge load of downforce, around 5 tons of downforce at speeds of over 300 kilometers an hour, anything above 180 miles an hour. You're seeing that load on the car, and it's getting pulled to the ground as well, don't forget, by these ground effect cars that we have, this modern generation of Formula 1 cars, modern day of F1 cars, pulling the cars to the ground through the floor. And because of that smooth surface that we have here, nice smooth surface, you can run the car even lower, and that generates even more downforce through the floor. So they're going to be seeing excessive G-force put through their bodies as you go through corners like this one here, penultimate corner at turn 15.
Sounds to me like you need to do a little feature on G-force this weekend and explain exactly what that means, you two.
Well, keep watching and you might be surprised or not.
Max Verstappen goes fastest with a 1:26.3 on his first flying lap. When it comes to engineering a car around here, Bernie, can you have too much downforce, or is there always more you can add on?
I think not. I think here it's always about adding downforce to the car. It's about trying to get the maximum. These corners, like Anne said, very, very demanding. The more downforce you can get on the car, a bit like what we seen last week, the better it is for getting the most out of the tyres as well. You're trying to really maximise the grip that you can have, and that helps every corner.
So why do you have such skinny wings in Vegas and then such big fat wings here? How does a circuit do that to a car, Bernie?
The simplest way, if you look at the track map that we have this week, lots of corners, lots of squiggly lines. Vegas, lots more long straights. So that's the first thing. In Vegas, those very long straights.
I have a lot of air coming into my helmet, so I need to change helmet after this turn.
Understood.
So lots of long straights in Vegas, and that means that you are trying to take downforce off the car, reduce the drag to get maximum straight line speed. That helps in your raceability. It's all about raceability. Can you defend position? Can you overtake position? Here, the main straight is much, much shorter. Shorter DRS zone as well, as I've already mentioned. That means that you're looking for the performance in the corners. More of your lap time is coming from the corners, and that's where you need the downforce. Very simply, corners need downforce, straight needs less drag, less downforce.
Beautifully explained.
And Max's time of a 1:26.3, over a second faster than the fastest FP1 time we had last year. And I mentioned the track was resurfaced leading into last year, so that shouldn't come as a surprise that after a year of just sitting there, the track should be an awful lot grippier.
And cooler conditions are going to help downforce even more because the denser air really works the wings even harder. So they're in for a ride around here. They really are, and I can't wait to see how they're going to prepare themselves physically for the race, or for the races that we have here, being a sprint weekend.
Well, last year, of course, we had the Pirelli tyres in a bit of trouble, so we had a mandated 18 laps maximum on each set. Yeah, that's one way of saying it. And we had 18 laps for each stint, so they were going flat out, which is why a few drivers, looked like they'd had a pretty tough night at the end of it. Shouldn't be the same case this year.
It shouldn't be the same case this year. We're a lot later in the year, so it's a bit cooler conditions. One of the other things that add to the lap time crafting, we'll try and find an example just there actually on the right hand side, if you can see it. The track limit has been moved back, so the white line has been moved back. Here on the left as well, you can see it again. The white line has been moved back, and you can just see it's slightly different tarmac where the line used to be. That means that they can use more of those exits, so that will automatically bring the lap time down, and we should see much quicker lap times this year than we did last year.
I think you're moving that white line, that just makes it easier on the drivers, but to compensate for that, they put a very nice gravel strip on the outside of turn 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and 12, 13, 14 and 15 to punish anyone that goes too wide.
So there are all your high-speed corners, and that's where you'll often see cars run out wide or too wide. We saw that last year, and I think that was doing potentially more damage to the tyres as well. So I think it's two for the price of one there, really, in trying to bring the white line closer to the curb to stop the track limits, but also having the gravel, lowering the curb. It all adds to not abusing the curb too much. And you could just see there on the exit of turn 1, that gravel chat. And I think it's the perfect amount.
I was going to say that, but the drivers have got what they wanted, yeah?
Exactly.
And I think the sport this weekend has got what it wants.
That's a good shot. You see there how the white line darts out and that V shape, just to allow the car to run onto the curb and over the white line with the outside wheels. But if you do venture with the inside wheels over the white line, then you're going to be touching the gravel instead of getting pulled up.
And you'll be punished for going too wide.
And I've already seen it happen in the F2 support race that we have here. And just drivers, you see us in this free practice session, so 50 minutes.
Pretty rubbish, not much bite.
Don't need brakes on this track anyway, George. Just crack on.
Says George Russell, sim driver. Crack on. I didn't use brakes at all.
Nothing happens in the virtual world. It's fine. You just press reset and go again. But yeah, so here on the exit of the penultimate corner, gravel trap there again. And I've seen in the F2 support race how they've been, in their practice session, how they've been running wide, and by the end of it, exploring the limits more and more, to the point where they do start touching the gravel, kicking it up, and that's skillful stuff.
Yeah.
And that should be applauded. Some drivers did get it completely wrong and go sailing through it, but you can live by going through it and back onto the tarmac on the other side.
We're on board with George Russell. Just a reminder, if you want to ride on board with last weekend's race winner or any of the other 19 drivers out on track currently, you can do so. There's your QR code, very handy for you. You need your Sky Sports login with your Sky Sports app, or if you're watching on Sky Q, Sky Glass, Sky Stream, or now, you can use the interactive button on your remote control. How's that braking getting on for George Russell?
I was joking, of course. You do need it on a corner like this one here, but not very much. And that feeling when you first press the brake pedal, or hit the brake pedal as you do in an F1 car, because you've got all that grip available, you want the brakes to be responsive. You want to have, as he described, that bite, the pads on the brake disc doing their job, slowing the car down as much as it can. You don't have ABS, you don't have that anti-lock braking system in Formula One. It's not allowed. It's all done through your left foot as you hit that brake pedal, and you want it to be there for you when you first kick it. And then you have to bleed that pressure off as the downforce starts to come away from the car as you slow down. Then you have to modulate the braking a bit more as you get deeper into the corner. You'll see that in corners like turn 6, for example, a much slower left-hander.
This is Carlos Sainz encountering that traffic paradise. New chicane has just opened up halfway down the straight for him there. Navigated that very well on the approach between turn 15 and 16, Bernie.
Yeah, I was just going to say, for anyone that's noticed there, Bottas has jumped up into P4. Not we're expecting to see that car, but because this track is quite dusty, because of its location, its lack of use a little bit through the year as well, we will see very, very high improvement through this first session. That will continue into the qualifying session later on today, and that is something that the teams need to get on top of, and sometimes where the drivers feel a big lack of grip in the beginning 12 minutes that we've just had, and it will improve as the session goes on.
Valtteri Bottas, who reached Q3 last year and finished 8th, his and Sauber's last points some 27 races ago.
Maybe genuine pace then, Crofton.
Maybe.
Good to see Leclerc trying to find a space to get going on this lap. He's pushing on this one on those hard tyres. But I was just going to ask you, Bernie, it will get busy around this track, particularly in the first round of the knockout rounds of qualifying and sprint quali. What's the kind of, because you're running such high downforce and the high-speed corners, therefore the turbulence is going to play more of an effect, surely. So what kind of distance are we looking at there for the car in front?
Ideally, around here, you're probably aiming for 7 seconds.
7
Something like 7 seconds.
It's a 124 lap.
Exactly,
it's
not possible. So you will hear at the end of qualifying lots of drivers complaining about traffic, lots of drivers complaining about being too close to the car in front. Nobody can get the gap that they want with the downforce level that you're running here.
Meanwhile, in the wide open spaces of the pit lane, Ted Kravitz.
Yeah, thank you, Crofty. Just seen a few drivers actually come into the pits and make quick adjustments. We've seen this at sprint weekends. They haven't got time to A, get their eye in, B, spend loads of time in the garage and endless practice sessions adjusting the cars, and C, actually get out there and try the different tyre work. So what I'm seeing, both Red Bulls, I've seen Liam Lawson as well, come in for a quick front wing change and then go out again just to do the bare minimum, if you like. If the balance isn't quite right, come in, quick wing change, out you go again, because well, time is really of the essence. We can see that with the drivers just slowing down and then getting a charged lap as well. I'm expecting them to come in about 6 minutes time. They tend to leave them out 20 minutes, don't they, Crofty?
Yes.
We got a flashing, or that's just to let some slower cars pass, but yeah, they'll come in 20 minutes and then make some quick adjustments if they can.
As Pierre Gasly goes fastest, and no news of any engine penalty for Pierre Gasly, despite what happened in Vegas, where I think for the first time in Formula One, well, certainly in recent years, an engine rather let go of itself because it was going too fast. Well, the car was going too fast. Verstappen into the 123s now, a second clear. Pierre Gasly picked up a toe, didn't he, in Las Vegas? I've got the details here. Behind Yuki Tsunoda, it hits, the engine hit 12,937 RPM, 224 miles an hour before it failed for going too fast.
Yeah, you know, the cars are built to go that fast, and you do have a, first of all, you should have a soft limiter followed by the hard limiter, a very definite limit that stops the engine revving over those 13,000. The interesting thing with these modern day power units, these hybrid engines or power unit, is that they get peak power around about 10,500 RPM to 11,000 RPM. But you can rev over that, a bit like in a way like a diesel engine. Right. It gets its peak power much lower down where its actual limiter will be. So it does give you that flexibility as an engineer, as a driver, to over-rev the engine. But obviously there are limits to that, over-revving, before the power drops off.
12,936 maybe in the case of that Renault engine.
So maybe it should have been slightly lower, that rev limit, but then obviously that stops you accelerating if you have got DRS and you're in the slipstream. A monster toe that he had on the way down that back straight to turn 14. So it was just that Swiss cheese effect, wasn't it, where all the holes line up and you get a failure. Yeah. And that's exactly what it was. It was a huge toe, flat out. The driver didn't lift off when he reached the. We're looking at here.
Letting two people pass.
Curious, honestly.
Okay, focus on yourself. Copy that.
Yeah. Once again, Liam Lawson focusing on Sergio Perez rather than himself.
No love lost there between those two then, since the Mexican Grand Prix, as we look at Alonso there going between two cars.
Well, you've got two cars off the track there.
Yeah.
I nearly crashed in 4 and 5. So everyone is slow down. Also, signs. Yeah.
This is quickly turning into a bit of a disaster, isn't it, out there with drivers all over the place trying to slow down to get those 7 seconds that Bernie described earlier on. And
I'd tell you you've done the job properly, Bernie. Whoever's engineering Lance Stroll, because he's on his own and has been for a while.
Yeah, and sometimes it can materialise like that, because what we're seeing in this session, a lot of people aborting laps, people pushing again, people not in the normal run profile that they would be in qualifying. You know, qualifying people tend to do push, cool, push, or just single push laps, so it's easy to predict where the gaps are going to be on track. In these sessions, it's much messier, especially earlier on. And what we're suffering is around here, we've talked about it a lot with the loads that are on the car and the downforce that we have. Basically between somewhere like turn 4 and turn 10, there's very little gap to let a car by. Again, through 12, 13, 14, that very high speed section, you don't necessarily want to be letting a car by there. If there's 2 or 3 of you going slow together, it's even more difficult to find a gap to let a car by. So you need to be really on top of the radio comms in this one.
Andrew Vizard engineering Lance Stroll. And there's the gap between McLaren and Ferrari. And you can see they've been pretty much neck and neck all season. It flipped over when McLaren took the lead of the Constructors' Championship a few races back. But Ferrari, I think, of the top 3, certainly ending the season the strongest, except the big question this weekend, can they get Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc to work in harmony for the good of the team?
Well, this is a good point you raise, Crofty, and yes, you know, we would naturally expect the 2 drivers, 2 employees of the team to be working as hard as they can, working together as much as they can for the greater good of the team.
Bernie, by the way, is the non-driver member of this commentary box, giving Anthony a look there that went, sorry, what?
You're missing a but, and it's coming. But you've sacked Carlos Sainz.
Yeah, that didn't help.
So where's his team morale right now? I think it's on his own shoulders, and he's driving for himself.
Yeah,
which isn't very good for a team's perspective, and that's what we saw unfold in the last race. I may be looking at it too simplistically from a driver's point of view, but yeah, why really for him? Does he really care? Does he want to win that team the Constructors' Championship? No, he wants to win races himself.
I think you're right, Anne. You know, I was going to say it maybe in not such a delicate way, but the drivers ultimately are thinking of their own points, their own position in the championship, how they can beat. The first person they want to beat is a guy in the garage next to them, because that's in the same machinery or as close to the same machinery as possible. So that is their ultimate goal. The team are much more focused on the team championship position. Ferrari, you know, it's going to be it will be so valuable to them to be able to beat McLaren in these closing stages. So they will do anything they can to do that.
Just to back that up, as we just watch Sergio Perez. Whoa! That corner that Sergio Perez was going
15.
around 15, yeah, catches a lot of drivers out.
Well, particularly with the grab, we see him, that moment of panic when he knows that he's lost the rear, and suddenly you know it's going to have bigger consequences than it would have done last year. Last year's pole position time, by the way, has been beaten already.
Yes, 1:23.7, whereas well, qualifying 3 was on the Friday evening, was a 1:23.778 for Max Verstappen.
Most stability.
SQ3, which obviously took place a day later, Oscar Piastri's pole for the sprint was a 1:24.4. So there's your evolution, and we are already going that much more slowly. What was I going to say? Carlos Sainz, just to back up what you're saying, is 9 points now behind Oscar Piastri in the championship. He's 5th in the championship. He's never finished in the top 4 in the championship in his career so far. And I know that's not winning a championship, but to finish top 4 is still very, very impressive. And with all due respect to the Williams team, he's not going to be aiming at top 4 next year. It's all about 2026, really, for Williams at the moment, and the longer-term project that is going on. So Charles Leclerc with the fastest time so far by just under 2/10 from Max Verstappen. Pierre Gasly, 3rd fastest, ahead of Lando Norris and Carlos Sainz. And I think Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc should just be left to get on, do their own thing, and propel themselves up the order as much as they can.
It's
I
just going
don't
to be
think it was Carlos Sainz. I know you two are doing a feature on this. It wasn't Carlos Sainz that were in Charles Leclerc's race last week, by the way, in Vegas.
Well, all will be explained, Frosty, as that's a good explanation of how the gravel trap works.
Charles Leclerc pushing too hard in the opening stages, surely. Otherwise, he might have pitted a bit later. Sorry, have I ruined your feature now?
Yeah, don't bother watching. Yeah, I mean, it's always difficult for drivers to get a feel for where the edge of the tyre is, particularly on a circuit like that one that they only see where you only have that one race a year, and the engineers have very, very limited data on. They've only been there once before, so it is difficult to go into a race. Maybe they were expecting Mercedes not to quite have the same race pace as it ultimately turned out. Maybe Charles thought that he could put more pressure on George at the beginning of the race and maybe even overtake him and getting to clear air, therefore giving his tyres an easier time of it. But yeah, it's easy for us to look back in hindsight and say he did the wrong thing, but he quickly learned and he rectified it for the second stint.
I think there's lots that could have been done different in hindsight with every race, that's to be said as well, but I think there was not necessarily a line from the Ferrari side, from the pit wall side, of how much management they were going to do in each stint. Like we say, I think Mercedes much stronger than they expected, which I think was what Carlos Sainz was a bit upset with at the end of the race, was he thought he had more of a chance against Hamilton. But when you look at it now in the cold light of day, out of the car, and you look at the pace that Mercedes had, I think they've probably all agreed in the debrief that that wasn't ultimately possible. But those frustrations aren't known by the driver when they're in the car. You can't share all of the information that you have on the pit wall, and that's often where these little disagreements build up, is perception versus what's actually happened in reality. And that's all about communication. The difficulty that a team like Ferrari has, they seem to spend a lot of time not trying to hide those secrets from the other pit walls, because the other pit walls are all listening. But at some point, it's just about being clear with your own driver, and that it's just getting that balance exactly right. And you know, the missed pit stop last week as well. Lots to go through, I think.
I found it very refreshing listening to James Allison, the technical director at Mercedes, after the race in Vegas a couple of days ago, still saying it really did surprise us how fast we were, because that was the message coming from the team throughout the Vegas weekend. We're quick. We don't quite know why we're so quick,
and that's a problem. You know,
I find it refreshing.
Well, it's refreshing, and it's maybe a bit humorous as well. But actually, it's a problem not knowing why. It's almost worse sometimes not knowing why you've won a race, instead of absolutely knowing why you've lost one.
Yeah, very good. Because it's engineering. there has to be a reason for it, and as engineers, Bernie, you're taught to try and find that reason.
We hate not having the answer. We absolutely hate not having the answer.
Since the summer break, Charles Leclerc, 142 points, has been the highest score. Only Valtteri Bottas and Nico Hülkenberg on track. Let's just have a quick look again at a moment for Franco Colapinto, where he just dips his front left tyre into the gravel. Didn't want to go too much further towards the left-hand side at turn 5. That could have been a bit naughty. For a team, a Williams team that has picked up 15 crashes so far this year. That is a lot by anyone's reckoning.
It kind of feels like it's got to the point where you daren't look through a qualifying session whenever you see a Williams pop up on the image on the screen. I feel so sorry for all the mechanics. I mean, they need a gold star, don't they, or something.
Or a box of tissues, because it'd make me cry.
The work they've put in this year, fixing, repairing cars, back at base and here at the track, is something I've never seen before. It's on a scale I've never seen.
And it seems to have got worse recently, if anything. You probably have the facts on that, Crofty, but I think Colapinto's pushing Alex Albon to perform at a higher standard than what he had before. And because of that, little errors are creeping in from both drivers now. You know, Colapinto's clearly been quick, but then there have been some, you know, mistakes to go along with that. So it's about getting that balance right of they don't want to breach the cost cap and they need to make it through these next 2 races.
And there must be other young drivers as well watching Colapinto thinking it's great that you're exciting, you're young, you're fresh, and it's mega to watch, but please stop crashing, because that's going to hinder our chances of getting, the F2 drivers waiting in the wings to get their chance. Teams have to have, it seems to go in waves, whether they want a driver with more experience and longevity in their career, or that exciting speed that a young driver brings where they throw caution to the wind. And it seems to have gone in recent times more to the latter, but Colapinto driving how he is at the moment and taking those risks and crashing the car on a regular basis, it doesn't do the young drivers any favours.
No, but 3 crashes in 2 weekends for Franco Colapinto hasn't seemed to hurt his chances. The rumours still persist that he's a target for and likely to join the Red Bull stable for next year, and maybe go and join RB to replace Liam Lawson, who could be going to Red Bull if they decide to replace Sergio Perez. That's the paddock rumour at the moment. Sergio Perez saying in a press conference yesterday, "I've got a contract for 2025. I fully expect to be on the grid." Ted, down to you.
Thank you, Crofty. There is a split in equipment between the Alpine drivers. So Pierre Gasly has the new nose cone and the new front wing. So take a look at that. Just below where it says A524, you see the nose cone ends there, and then it's enabling a completely free front wing main plane section. If we compare it, let's play spot the difference, shall we, to Esteban Ocon's nose cone. That's the old one. So what Alpine have done have actually sort of come up to proper, if you like, cutting edge front wing technology, but they've only got well, yes, indeed, but they've only got one of them. I mean, if you remember from the start of the year, this nose cone actually had to be, the reason it looks so fat, the nose cone, and wide and deep on Ocon's one, the old nose cone, was because they had to build a bit more material into it because it failed a crash test earlier on the season. And only now, if we go back to the slimline nose cone on Gasly's car, can you see they've actually managed to slim the whole thing down. But they will have 2 in Abu Dhabi. They will have another one for Esteban Ocon to use in Abu Dhabi in a week's time. But for this weekend, and it is a performance upgrade, Crofty, it's only on Gasly's car.
Thanks ever so much, Ted. And we did spot the difference, I promise. Lando Norris, the next one to have a skirmish with the gravel. And turn 5 does seem to be catching a lot of drivers out. I'm just looking, is wind playing a part in that one?
I should imagine it is, Crofty. Yeah, the wind is coming from, it's blowing the car in that direction, and as we know, it will take the grip away. But yeah, it's nice to see them going through the high-speed corners of 12, 13 and 14 at triple right-hander. And really, I think it was Hülkenberg we were riding on board with before, really respecting the track limits there and not using too much of the curb. You just see what what a difference it's made to the drivers, the way they approach that high-speed section as Norris works his way to that very part of the track right now.
He's backed off Lando Norris. I think there was another, whether it was an error, whether it was wind or the car just not doing what he wanted it to do, but it just looks a little bit scruffy. Is that the right word, this lap?
Just exploring the limits, you know. It's on a part of the track where you are going to make lap time if you get right up to the curb. And here we see the other Haas driver of Kevin Magnussen doing exactly the same thing. And it's funny, last year they were placing all of their car over the curb and playing with that white line instead of driving up to the gravel trap on the exit. So it's I mean, being a driver, I can appreciate this extra skill that's going into what they're doing here today compared to last year.
I think just coming a little bit of that, Crofty, that set that Norris is on at the minute, that's a used medium set that he'd done his first run on. I think what we're seeing now is some drivers that have done their first run at sort of a lowish level of fuel, now doing a sort of few laps of high fuel, consistent running, get their eye in for race on Sunday and the sprint tomorrow, try and get some feel of the balance in that before they do their final sort of qualifying prep this afternoon. And the final little thing, just to have a bit of tyre chat when I've got the mic open, there's the two Ferraris and the two Williams are the only cars so far to have ran the hard tyre.
Is that a surprise that anyone's running the hard tyre?
Well, last year in P1, when I look back through it, a lot of people ran the hard tyre at this stage. Pretty much everyone ran the hard tyre in P1 last year. Now, given everything that went on last year, in the minimum stint lengths, in how detrimental it was, or how hard it was in tyres a race, not necessarily, I am surprised that even those four have. However, if we look at Vegas last weekend, nobody ran the hard tyre in practice. Everyone saved two hard tyres for the race. And then when it came to the race, people were very unsure how many stops they were doing. So, bit of a mixed bag out there, but that's why you see those four drivers on hard tyres.
And every driver out there, bar the Alpines of Gasly and Ocon, so a good time to go, ooh, as Oscar Piastri goes off the track right at the end, just on the exit of turn 15. A good time to go trackside, I think, getting his eye in under the lights this evening. Jenson Button. Jenson.
Hello, Crofty. They said come to Qatar, it's lovely and warm. It's not lovely and warm out here. It's actually pretty cold and it's pretty windy. We're actually stood at turn, well, you can see turn 7 just behind us, come through turn 8, turn 9, and then we're into turn 10. It's such an interesting part of the circuit. I mean, for me, there's lots of great parts to the Lusail track. It's very smooth, very fast, very flowing. But this is a tricky part to the circuit in everything, I think, that you drive around here. But a Formula 1 car is at its best. It's a shame you can't quite see it here, but between turn 9 and 10, the change of direction is absolutely nuts. You know, it reminds me of Copse at Silverstone when you come through Maggots and Beckett's at Silverstone, that change of direction. It's the same here. There's no other type of racing car that changes direction like an F1 car. And they're coming through the flat-out turn 9 into turn 10. And they're braking as they get to the 50-meter board, and that is crazy late. Turn 10 is a reasonable speed corner. It's sort of medium speed in an F1 car, a low speed corner, anything else. But it's quite a long left-hander. So they're trying not to overspeed the entry to get a really good exit and carry that speed all the way into turn 11, 12, 13, the long right-hander. We've seen a few get a little squirrely on the exit. One was a McLaren, and he actually fully backed out of the throttle because it was just, well, it was trying to swap ends. It was left, right, left, the rear of the car. But it's such a fun part to the track. And as I said before, this circuit is super smooth. So you can get the cars as low as you can to the ground, get as much downforce as you can. And with these low temperatures, this is a super physical track. There's a lot of high-speed corners here, and it's never ending for these guys. So hats off to them. And, you know, last year we saw them in the race that they were struggling in terms of fitness-wise, pushing the human body to the limits. And I think we're going to have something similar this year. It's such a tough track for the drivers. But I raced here earlier in the year in a prototype, and it was a fun track to drive in a prototype. And it felt quick. But when you watch an F1 car trackside here, it blows my mind. And, you know, I raced F1 cars for 17 years. And every time I see an F1 track on track, it makes me smile and it makes me miss it even more. but especially stood somewhere like this, you know, such a high-speed section of the track, and you see the cars sparking. It is a beautiful thing to watch. You know, they have such a limited time here, you know, the 1 hour before qualifying, and we're seeing them out on track a lot. And I think the reason is, compared to a lot of tracks, you know, a lot of tracks, you're working on setup, you're fine-tuning it for the braking zones and traction zones. Here, for me, it's more about confidence and bravery. And I think that's why they're doing so many laps to find the limit of the car, but also of themselves. And that's the tricky one around here, especially in this section here. But yeah, it's a real privilege to watch them out here. And for me, it's really difficult to pick between a Ferrari, a McLaren, a Mercedes, a Red Bull, of who looks stronger, because every car looks insanely quick through this section. And that goes for most of this track. But it's a real privilege to come down here, Crofty. And I know the box is really warm, the comms box, but this is the place to be.
It is, and at least that temperature's giving your outfit an airing tonight. I mean, I love that. Is it true you picked it up at the souk last night, bought it from a local tradesperson? It was a rug before you cut a hole in it, but it looks lovely.
Thank you. I love that you had to end on "it looks lovely" there. Thank you, Crofty.
Yeah, I try, but only because I'm going to be with you later. We'll be nice, I promise. Jenson Button, trackside tonight. Yeah, he's coming into the commentary box a little bit later on, but there was a beautiful rug before he cut a hole in it, decided to wear it. Marvellous outfit. Pierre Gasly.
Oh, he just touched that curb.
Yeah, that threw him off.
And he had to avoid the next gravel trap rather than go bouncing through it and scraping the car. So it's been, I feel like it's been cleverly placed where they've done this.
At the front of the car.
I tell you who's not endearing himself to his fellow drivers tonight is Lando Norris. I keep hearing radio messages along the lines of, what is Lando Norris doing? He seems to be, Bernie, in various positions where other drivers feel that he's holding him up a bit.
And it's weird how we often get these sessions where drivers pick up on one or another driver for being slightly out of position. But like I said earlier, it is easy to get out of sync and those sorts of things. And it's hard, especially in these conditions. You don't necessarily want to do the 2 cool down laps or 2 push laps in a row that might get you back in phase with others. And what I mean by in phase or out of phase is a lot of you together pushing at one time or being slow at one time. That's quite easy to manage the gaps between drivers because they're staying quite stable. The cool down laps here are much, much slower than a fast lap, something in the region of 50 seconds slower than a fast lap. So you need to look a long way around the track to see the traffic.
Carlos Sainz is about to go fastest. Here is Carlos Sainz, and here he is going fastest by 3.5 tenths from his teammate Charles Leclerc. You just saw Fernando Alonso on your screen. Congratulations to Fernando Alonso this weekend. I know in Austin we celebrated his 400th Grand Prix weekend. Tonight, well, Sunday night, we are celebrating his 400th Grand Prix start. And that's the one I think that counts. The one where he's actually at the lights, where they go out, yeah, and he starts the race.
It's only because you get to come out with your catchphrase.
What? Lights out and away Alonso goes. It's not going to work, is it?
If you could just do that for Alonso on Sunday, maybe. But
we'll do that.
The thing is, Crofty, a lot of the work goes in the prep, the practices, the qualifying. So the race is actually very small. It's a very engineering view, I know.
It's the one that Crofty's going to celebrate. It's the most important part of Crofty's week,
and it's the most important one watching at home. But as a team and the effort that goes into getting that car ready for race day, there's a lot of work behind it.
We'll get back on the starts in a little while. Ant and I badgered someone last night to find out when does a Grand Prix actually start, and we now have the answer. But Ted, what's
then my carrying is flying.
Sergio Perez getting a bit of a bird's eye view behind Lando Norris at the moment. Ted, down to you at Alpine.
Well, I can't wait for the answer to that, Crofty, but in the meantime, I will just tell you what, this is crucial time, track time, being lost by Esteban Ocon. They thought it was a suspension issue. They were changing the suspension. It didn't feel right to Ocon, but now there's actually a disconnect in the front right hub. You can see the mechanics working on. They've had to disconnect an upright and some wishbones, and now they're putting them back together. They're investigating the issue, but all the time, I haven't got a monitor, so I can't see how few laps he's done, Ocon, but I know it's just a handful, isn't it, Crofty? Because he's been in the garage for the last 20 minutes.
Yeah, he's only done 9.
Compared to, say, how many for Gasly, his teammate?
16.
Yeah, so this is, as you've always said, Crofty, and Bernie, of course, as well, this is, you can't do this really on a sprint weekend, going into sprint qualifying later and expect your competitiveness not to suffer. Right, go back to your little tease there, Crofty.
Well, no, so
when does the
basically,
Grand Prix start?
Yeah, so Ant and I went out with some members of the FIA last night, the ones that haven't been fired yet, and we had a chat about starts. Well, exactly. 10 senior personnel from the FIA have departed this year. Anyway, when does a race actually start? Is it the formation lap? Is it when they're actually on the grid? No, it's when the order is given to the race starter to start the race. So the green flag waves, and then the race, and the race starter will set the starting mechanism in motion, and according to all the appendixes of the sporting code and the sporting regulations, it is that moment where the starting system is put into operation. The race does not start before that, which is why Fernando Alonso didn't start in Sochi in 2017, because he peeled off at the end of the formation lap, and because his engine wasn't feeling very well. So it's his 400th start this weekend. Bernie's looking at me like that's the best dinner conversation ever. I am
really disappointed to have missed that dinner. Absolutely, Crofty. But one of the things is, a lot of the terminology in Formula One becomes really quite confusing. We talk about a race start time, for example. That's what the people at home will look at. They'll have a race start time. But that start time is actually the start of the formation lap.
Correct, which is not the start of a race.
But when we talk about having a 2-hour time limit on a race, or a 3-hour time limit if we include the red flags, that is from when the race actually started. Now, I think we count that actually from the lights out, and away we go. Well, keyed up, Crofty.
Well done.
I couldn't finish it. I couldn't bring myself to finish it. I might get sued for saying it out loud in your presence.
But do you think I think we make things a little bit too complicated sometimes in Formula One to understand. I wouldn't sue you.
I hope not. I can't afford it, Crofty.
As long as you pay me the money, we'll be fine. Back to the serious business. Sergio Perez thinks that the McLaren is flying, but the timing screens say that the Ferrari is flying of Sainz and Leclerc, with Norris and Piastri only 3rd and 6th at the moment.
Yeah, and the Ferraris have done that all on the hard tyre as well. So they're the outliers at the moment, with everyone else around them running the medium tyre. So what do you read into this then, Bernie? Is this Ferrari thinking that the hard tyre isn't the race tyre to be on, more the medium, and everyone else thinking the opposite?
So if we look back to 21, which is the only race that we've had where there's been total freedom and strategy, it was very split between a 1 and a 2 stop. Oh, it's close. It was very split between a 1 and a 2 stop. Now, teams will be thinking at this stage, do we think that's 2 sets of hard or 2 sets of medium? Unfortunately, the teams are mandated that they are only allowed 2 sets of hard for the whole weekend. In reality, teams would have probably, if they had free choice, brought 1-2 run in practice, and then still have 2 for the race. So it's a tight decision for teams. What we're seeing for Ferrari, track improvement is still there. That's why any of the tyres are getting faster as we run into this race. And I think as that hard wears down, it's fit to keep up the lap time. So degradation very, very low at this stage.
Esteban Ocon on the track, finally, after losing quite some time, as Ted was saying, in the garage. We got 17.5 minutes to go of this session, and it's Carlos Sainz who has the fastest time by 3.5 tenths from his teammate Charles Leclerc. Lando Norris back in the garage, 3rd fastest, then it's Gasly and Verstappen completing the top 5. So just under 17 minutes to go. What do you reckon, Bernie? Another 5 minutes and we'll see some soft tyres being fitted. A couple of runs on the soft tyre.
Yeah, I think you need to get a couple of runs in the soft tyre on this track. That's what they're going to be running later on in the final run of qualifying. So it's really important that they try and get some of those runs in, and that is what we'll see, exactly like you say, Crofty, towards the end. We don't tend to see too many red flags in this track, in this session, so they shouldn't be worried about running it too late in the session, but they will definitely be trying to get some runs.
Interestingly, and I know it's a very small sample zone that we take from here, 100% chance of a safety car here, because we have had safety cars in each of the 2 years that we've had a Grand Prix here. So would a team come to this and think, right, build safety car periods into your strategy, or do they think, well, no, sooner or later we're not going to get one, and we shouldn't really get one at a track like this?
I think you do come, and you're definitely aware of where the safety cars may come in the race, where they've come in the past. One of the things is, although if you look at the track, you might think there's a low risk of safety car. If you look at the conditions that the tyres are exposed to, the potential of failure for those that we've seen in previous years, it's late in the year, so engines are getting old, gearboxes are getting, all these things that lead to potential reliability issues that we don't tend to see now at the beginning of the year. There's lots of things that goes into that safety car mix. As a statistician, it's very difficult to say 100% risk because you know that there's not 100% chance, but that is what we've seen in the past. So teams, and that's what sometimes why teams see of that additional hard tyre, because if there's a safety car later on in the race, you're ready to react to it.
What was it, the sprint race last year? We had 10 of the 19 laps were behind the safety car. It elongated the sprint a little bit more, but it didn't give us much racing, to be fair. You're shaking your head there, you're right.
I was just, I didn't know you were aiming your question directly at me, so I was just sort of shaking my head to kind of agree with you.
I was just finishing the sentence, and I thought, you know what we need now is some words of wisdom from Anthony Davidson.
Well,
you looked away.
Well, the words of wisdom are that Ferrari are now out there on the same tyre as those around them, and I'm interested to see now as the lap times will surely tumble even further with 14.5 minutes to go as he comes peeling back into the pits.
I think he was scrubbing a set of tyres.
I think you may be right.
Which Ferrari have kind of started doing, really, and just putting them through a gentle lap in order to take the sheen off the tyre to prepare them, I don't know, Bernie Collins, maybe for the sprint race tomorrow.
Yeah, it'll be definitely, it's something like that, because we heard it even last week in Vegas. We heard teams being told it's going to take the tyres a few corners out of the pit lane to properly get to the grip of it. Here with the demands that they have on the tyres, it's about trying to get as much of that surface, the proper rubber surface. What you see, the shiny bit is basically a remnant, I can't even say that word right, of the release agent that they put on the mold that they make the tyres. That's why it's shiny. So if you can just take that sheen off.
So Oscar Piastri in the pits, and there are many cars that are being wheeled back into the garage. One of them is not Carlos Sainz, the fastest driver so far, 3.5 tenths up on Charles Leclerc. And what Ferrari are doing is just putting some medium tyres through a gentle heat cycle on the lap, get rid of the sheen on them, what's left over, Bernie was saying, the remnants of the release agents, and just helping to bring the tyres up to a better peak grip earlier on when they next get used, maybe in the sprint race. Because I think medium tyres for the sprint race, are we saying that?
I think so. I think it should be a medium tyre sprint race around here. I think based on everything that we've seen last year and the year before, even everything that we've seen so far this year, it should be more robust, although the lap time is quicker. You know, we're already seeing quicker lap times than we have last year, so that is adding demand to the tyres.
Let's head down to the pit wall. And we're at RB this weekend. What a good weekend to be at RB. Lauren Mekies is their team principal. 4 points the difference between an extra $30 million and 8th place in the championship, Lauren, and you're smiling at that prospect. So what's your chances this weekend? Have you got a car for Qatar?
Hi everyone. Well, you know, at first it's 4 points for 2 positions at the championships now. So it's first of all it's a competitor's game. So we think first to the competitions and to the challenge to finish P6, and then there is a commercial aspect, as you pointed out. Look,
think of the money. Come on, Lauren. Think of the money.
It's the usual suspect this weekend. You know, everybody is, it seems to be very, very tight. It's early days because the track is improving a lot. So you see everyone is taking big chunk of lap time out every time they go out. But, you know, we think it's going to be, again, a story of hundreds between us, Alpine, Haas, and probably Williams will probably join the party anyway. So early days, but for sure it's only 2 races to go. There is a lot of points at stake this weekend, so an important one.
Lauren, it's Anthony here. So a short session here, 1 hour just before that first sprint qualifying session. How have you worked this session between the 2 cars, and is it going to plan?
You know, hi Anthony, so far it is going to plan in the way that I'm sure you heard some of the comments. The grip level is quite high. I think for everyone the track is in a good shape, even though it's improving run after run, the track is in good shape. So the cars are reasonably balanced. So we are just going through the program. We've just done a run with a bit more fuel to try to have a first peek at what could be the sprint race tomorrow, and now we are going to go back to the soft tires and try to prepare the qualifying. So far it's going to plan, but it's early days to know if you have an edge on competitions or if you are a bit of a step behind. So we'll probably know that after this final run.
Lauren, it's Bernie here. So just the question Crofty was just asking me, I'm sure you weren't listening, I'm sure you're much busier, but that medium tyre, how is it performing at the minute versus what we've seen last year, and do you think that's probably the preferred tyre for the sprint?
Yeah, I think it's probably the preferred one for the sprint, to be honest. So at least that's how we went into the weekends. We have done a reasonably long runs on it right now. Of course, any degradation is hidden by the track improvement, but I would expect most of the field to go on that tyres for the sprint. You're right.
Lauren, thank you very much, and thank you as well for the access that you gave our cameras for last weekend in Vegas. Our behind-the-scenes feature is this weekend. Can't wait to see it. I'm assuming you star in it.
It was good fun. It was good fun. Thanks to your team.
Brilliant. Thanks, Lauren, and we'll speak to you during sprint qualifying. Yeah, we had our cameramen and producers basically behind the scenes, fully integrated, fully immersed with the team, even wearing their special team kit for Vegas as well, much to the mirth of the rest of us on the Sky crew. They were walking around in the sweatshirts. Yeah, we've got a great behind-the-scenes feature for this weekend, for tomorrow and for Sunday. Now, Alex Albon on the soft compound tyre. His teammate Franco Colapinto went out on the softs, made an error in the middle sector, so we didn't see the improvement there. It's a 1:24.5 for Alex Albon, is his best time on the medium tyre. Around the final corner he goes, down the straight, and he improves to a 1:23.4. It's a second and a bit improvement.
Yeah, good lap time there by Alex Albon, and a well-driven lap as well. Now, the difficulty for drivers, Crofty, when you're putting new tyres on, you drop the fuel and you start using the DRS as well, you go much faster in lap time. You have to start using different gears as we look at Djokovic there. It's nice to see him here.
Yeah,
enjoying the action.
McLaren have served up a treat for Novak Djokovic this weekend.
Well done, well done. I'll give you that one.
Thank you very much indeed. Half volley to Ted Kravitz, and away we go, Ted.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, down at Mercedes, and let's see where they are, because we're just gearing up. Well, everybody is gearing up for a fast lap. Everybody's left the pits. Max Verstappen there, you can see, just preparing his tyres for a quick lap on the soft tyres. George Russell will be after him, and just now, after a quick change to the rear suspension, Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes as well. So we're about to get some answers on quali pace, and it'll be SQ3, won't it, Crofty, when we next see these soft tyres.
And taking you through the rest of this lap with Max Verstappen, Anthony Davidson.
Yeah, so here we are running on board on the visor cam through turn 2 in 5th gear, just momentarily down to 4th. Just picked up a bit of understeer through the middle of that corner, then up to 7th gear, makes a differential change on the mid phase for turn 4 and 5. We did see a bit of understeer through there for some cars, so maybe he's just freeing up the diff slightly to help that rotation. Speaking of rotation, that's what you want on the slowest speed corner on the track. 55 miles an hour takes you through turn 6 and into turn 7 and 8. He goes here through the long right-hander, through the kink of turn 8, and then flat out through turn 9. Bring the car to the right-hand side to open up turn 10, and a quick look to the apex as well. Then let the car run out all the way to the outside curb, and once again bury that throttle pedal flat out through the first kink of turn 12. Keep it pinned through turn 13 as well, unbelievably, and then flick the car into turn 14, pulling excessive G-force around 4.5 G, 4.5 times your body weight. That was perfection on the exit of the second to last corner, just kicking up the puff of dust from the gravel, and then get on the throttle as early as you can to send it back down that main straight. What a circuit for these Formula 1 cars. Not the fastest lap for Max Verstappen, but brilliantly driven.
And he lost a bit of time in that final sector. Lance Stroll's put in a 1:23.0. That is a very impressive lap time from him. Charles Leclerc goes quickest with a 1:22.2. So it's 8 tenths, nearly 9 tenths difference between Leclerc and Stroll. That's a mega lap from Charles Leclerc, and his teammate Carlos Sainz at the moment is half a second down through the first 2 sectors and can't live with Leclerc's timings.
A great lap by Charles Leclerc, and like you said, Crofty, his teammate hasn't set a purple sector in the first or second sector. A little bit put off maybe by a bit of traffic there as well in the penultimate corner of 15. That takes it through the final corner of 16 and back down the main straight to go 7 tenths slower. Yeah. And yeah, not even a personal best in that final sector for Sainz.
I was just going to say, for Ferrari there, it's even more impressive. They've made a bigger step than the others. They've gone from the hard tyres straight to the soft. That's a bigger adjustment in braking zones, in balance, in getting on the throttle out of the corner. So much bigger steps as we're going to watch the McLaren through the corner now. But again, just on Stroll, I think he had a lovely clear track for that run. Yeah. So that's going to have helped that lap time.
Only one appearance in Q3 in the last 7 races at Sao Paulo, and that was after he crashed in Q2. To the McLarens now, Oscar Piastri, who of course was on pole for the sprint here last year.
Yeah, the McLarens are coming, aren't they, Crofty? They are coming. Norris just stole that fastest first sector from his teammate Piastri, who's ahead of him on track. Piastri navigates the final corner. And I always thought this might be a McLaren track, a bit more than the Ferrari track, but he still can't, Piastri at least, can't topple Leclerc. What can Norris do as he sets a personal best in the middle sector? So I guess that Leclerc is still hanging on to that one. Yes, he does.
Lewis Hamilton next across the line, 6th fastest, 2nd off the pace in the McLaren. Lando Norris over the line now, and he goes 2nd fastest behind Charles Leclerc. 5/100ths of a second between the 2 McLarens, and they're just outside, over a 10th away from Charles Leclerc.
Tell you what, I'd love to see the onboard of Charles Leclerc's lap. Might have to have a bit of a look at that later on the Skypad.
Nico Hülkenberg in the Haas. He's going to go wide here. Oh, and that's why he's asking just for the team to give the once over to the floor.
Yeah, I thought it was going to look worse off board. And yeah, those delicate edges on the right-hand side of the floor there are really going to be a bit beaten up from those stones. Oh, Piastri, yeah, he was in traffic there, wasn't he? Big time through turn 5 before turn 6, so that's where he would have lost his time.
How much has that cost him, would you say?
Well, if that was on his fastest lap, then that would have been an almighty lap time. I'm not sure, was that his 2nd go already, or no? I think that must have been his fastest lap. And I reckon that would have cost him at least 2 tenths, 2.5, 3 tenths.
Well, if it did, that puts Oscar Piastri right in the ballpark for pole position here in the sprint, which of course he won last year, his first ever victory of any kind in Formula 1. That was a very late dart back into the pits by Esteban Ocon, but he's okay because he's gone to the right of the bollard. There's a bollard that you've seen. As long as you stay to the right of that, you're absolutely fine. By the way, the rules have been tightened up a little bit since Las Vegas, and now the pit lane and pit entry road count pretty much for the same thing. The rules before said that if you're coming into the pit lane, you've got to stay committed to it. Technically, Carlos Sainz in Las Vegas was in the pit entry road, but what he did was still a little bit on the dangerous side. It's all been tightened up now. If you're committing to the pit entry road or the pit lane, you've got to stay committed to that and not divert back onto the track again.
Yeah, when I first saw that unfold in Las Vegas, I thought he'd it was a slam dunk,
Yes.
immediate penalty
You
coming
weren't
his
the
way.
only one.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you in comms as well, that I fully suspected that was going to happen, but as Bernie corrected me earlier on today, that of course every circuit has its own, in a way, its own directive on how you can use that pit lane entry, that slip road, before you get to the actual pit lane itself. Because we see in places like Interlagos, for example, you can't cross that white line and then rejoin the circuit. And we've seen drivers penalised for that before. So I just automatically assumed, oh, he's done exactly that. Penalties coming his way. But for that particular track, it's allowed.
I would have never corrected you, Anne. It was just a discussion. I would never correct
Oh,
it.
it's just a discussion.
Just a
How
discussion.
diplomatic.
Sergio Perez, down in 18th currently. We didn't see his flying lap, did we? Was there a mistake on it, I wonder? Because once again, that is a Red Bull out of sync with its teammate.
And he has used the soft tyre.
Yes.
I mean, it's impossible to focus on every single lap time. We didn't see Piastri, for example, live when it happened in that first sector where he got caught with the traffic, for example. So I'm guessing that Perez...
That's why we have Sky Race Control. That's why Bernie Collins has just leapt to an instant replay of...
I'm just running multiple computers, Crofty, that's all. But when you look at Perez's sector times, his ranking in the 3 sectors, Sector 1 P15, Sector 2 P18, Sector 3 P16, so consistently across the lap. It's not like he's had one off sector or one poor result there. Whereas when I look at McLaren, they rank 1 and 3 in Sector 1, 6 and 7 Sector 2, so maybe that's the time for them is to find, and 2 and 3 in Sector 3.
1 minute 21.9. Charles Leclerc got even faster on his second flying lap. The degradation is offset by the track improvement. Lauren Mechie's telling us that a few moments ago, and Charles Leclerc putting that to good use. So that's more a worry then for Sergio Perez. A mistake in the sector you can get right the next time. But that's 3 sectors that lap belongs then in the bottom 5 as Yuki Tsunoda goes 5th fastest on the checkered flag.
Looking at Sainz there as well. He managed to squeeze out a pretty decent lap time from his second go at it as well. So yeah, like we said, that the circuit's ramp up in grip is almost plateauing the drop off in the degradation of the tyres.
Checkered flag is out then, and the cars will continue to finish their flying laps. Valtteri Bottas has just gone fastest in the middle sector.
Just to confuse everyone.
No, not at all. This time last year, Bottas was flying. They love this circuit, and he's got no one in front of him as far as the eye can see. Hits the line, goes 6th fastest. Second off the pace, but he had clear track, Bernie Collins.
Clear track is going to be so crucial in this qualifying session. And like we've discussed many times, Q1, I actually ran the numbers on it. The average gap is going to be around 4 seconds, and they're looking for 7 ideally. So it is going to be a struggle to get that lap in with the maximum downforce, which is nobody in front of you.
What have Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly got in common? Oh, was Oscar Piastri wild going off the track.
Their car?
Well, their car, and the fact they're teammates, and the fact they didn't run a fast lap on the soft tyres. So the table looks a little bit skewed in terms of lap times for them, but Alpine choosing to save their soft tyres. That has just come from the team. Go GR. Yeah, George Russell, winner of the last race, of course, in Las Vegas, and what a performance that was from George Russell, who said he kept expecting the challenge to come, but it never did. And I thought looked absolutely superb. Didn't put a foot wrong in that race.
And qualifying as well. He was absolutely supreme in his element, and he really needed a race like that. I think the team needed a race like that as well, to really put their faith in George going forward next year as their lead driver, or at least most experienced driver, as Lewis departs to the team we're looking back on now.
Yeah, they led every session in Vegas, Mercedes, took pole and the win. First time they've done that since Mugello 2020, the Tuscan Grand Prix. Been a while. So, in the battle for the Constructors' Championship, Red Bull have a lot to do. We know that. Charles Leclerc, Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, Carlos Sainz. That's the top 4 in that order. And who's to say that won't be the top 4 come sprint qualifying as well, in whatever order.
The gap is just huge, isn't it? I mean, we're not used to seeing this kind of gap from P1 to P2 in any session, with that 4.5 gap from Leclerc to everybody else behind him. We're used to much tighter gap. I mean, Max Verstappen, 1.2 seconds off the pace.
Yeah.
And Perez, I mean, I know we're saying, well, what's he doing down there in P18? He's 7/10 behind Max Verstappen. It's still a lot, but it's not, you know, we've seen more. We've seen that gap bigger before, but Verstappen down in P11, it is surprising. And yeah, standout performances by the likes of Yuki Tsunoda, Valtteri Bottas and Stroll as well. Really goes to show how, in a way, how up and down and unpredictable that session was.
And we'll tell Valtteri Bottas what you said about him and how surprised you were that he was right up there. The dark horse for the weekend. Valtteri Bottas cannot finish a season pointless for the first time in his career in what could be his last season in Formula One. Just not allowed.
Well, he's shown it. He showed his hand now. He's got to keep that performance up for the rest of the weekend.
He certainly has. Leclerc did get the second flying lap in, of course, on the soft compound tyre where others might not have done. Carlos Sainz did improve, but not to within half a second of his teammate. That's a practice start there for Lando Norris. It's such a tight lap, it really is. If that was the sprint finishing order, Leclerc would get 8 points, Sainz would get 5 points, that'd be 13 or 7, that'd be 13 all, wouldn't it, from the sprints. It's a McLaren and Ferrari battle that Ferrari have headed after the one and only practice session here in Qatar this evening. Charles Leclerc, though, nearly half a second clear of Lando Norris. Big gap. Norris, 5/100ths clear of his teammate Oscar Piastri. Carlos Sainz, a further 10th back. Then, Yuki Tsunoda. Precious points for RB if they can replicate that in the sprint. Valtteri Bottas needs points. He hasn't got any so far this season. Lance Stroll and Aston Martin have been pointless in the last 4 races. George Russell, Alex Albon, Lewis Hamilton completing the top 10. Max Verstappen not in the top 10. Nor his teammate Sergio Perez, who was down in a lowly 18th. Gasly and Ocon, best time set on the medium compound tyre. That is it for practice. Sprint qualifying is next, and the teams battle all to play for.
Good morning, everyone.